Hey guys, Nintendrew here. Today I'll be reviewing the Super Retro Trio Plus console from Retrobit. So this is the Super Retro Trio Plus from Retrobit. It is a hybrid clone console with support for Sega Genesis, NES, and Super Nintendo carts, including the overseas counterparts of the former two, the Mega Drive and the Super Famicom. It's an updated version of Retrobit's previous system, the Super Retro Trio. The biggest changes from the original are the addition of an HDMI out port for 720p video, and a set of two newly redesigned controllers. In addition to its HDMI support, the Super Retro Trio Plus also offers the original AV connection as an alternative for those who prefer to use it on a CRT television. So first things first, let's check out the controllers. For the most part, I like this new design. The grips and buttons feel nice, everything seems pretty well put together, with the one exception of the gamepad's shoulder buttons. Unlike the original controllers, which were closer to the Super Nintendo's layout, these controllers have shoulder buttons which are kind of on a hinge and don't feel very easy to press when you've got your finger over the whole thing. You've kind of got to claw hand it to effectively push the switch all the way down. A minor gripe, but certainly something I would have liked to have seen addressed. However, on the flip side, these controllers also have 10-foot cables, which is very nice, pretty hard to beat. As for the design of the console itself, for the most part it is very simple and elegant. On the top you've got your 3 cartridge ports and a power slider and reset button, and the controllers are plugged in through a panel on the front of the system. However, at first glance the connections behind the front panel may be a bit overwhelming. I wasn't really sure what I was looking at until I took some time to read through the manual and get acquainted. So there are these 2 switches on the left side. The lower switch is just a region control switch for the Genesis. This lets you pick between NTSC-U, PAL Europe, NTSC Japan, and PAL Australia regions. The upper one, though, allows you to swap between 2 controller modes. Basically, you can choose between using the included controllers or a standard SNES controller to lend input for any title regardless of console, or you can switch it over and choose to use original SNES, NES, and Genesis controllers respectively for each system. A little convoluted at first, but it's definitely a cool option that you can just plug in one controller and use it for a title on any of the 3 supported platforms. So let's take a look at how it performs. I'm going to start with a Sega Genesis game. One thing I was curious about when I first booted up the system was whether we'd see some fancy menu or anything like that, but nope, we just get sent straight into the game because apparently the SR3 Plus uses no emulation, it's all running on hardware. Often with hardware clones, colors or sounds may seem off when you compare it to the original system, but as far as I can tell, everything looks and sounds more or less authentic. But we'll have a side-by-side comparison later on in the video and you can be the judge. When testing a new console like this, sometimes I like to see what sort of curveballs I can throw at it to see what all it's compatible with. So in the case of this system's Genesis support, I decided to try a 32X game. However, it did not work, just a blank green screen, but that is no big deal because the 32X wasn't one of the 3 advertised supported platforms. I just figured I would be remiss if I didn't try it just in case. For SNES, I decided to try out a Super FX chip game, Stunt Race FX, as they often have issues with these clone consoles. Once again, this is not an emulation solution, so as expected, the game actually ran with flying colors. I also decided to pop in the Super Gameboy just to confirm that that works as well, no problems. And I assume because of its hardware design that it should have near one-to-one compatibility with the SNES library. Finally, as it was advertised as compatible with Super Famicom carts, I tried out my Japanese copy of Chrono Trigger, and of course, once again, no issues. Last we have the NES. I figured I'd boot up the classic Super Mario Bros. Because if there were to be any discrepancies with its sound chip, I would like to think I've spent enough time with Super Mario Bros. To catch it. Systems like the Retron 1 have very apparent differences in their sound fonts, but the SR3 Plus seems to not skip a beat. I will say out of the 3 consoles supported, NES games appear to be the most crisp and clear, but that could just be me. In playing Super Mario Bros., I also noticed an interesting design choice. Because this is not emulation and there are no customization menus, you can't do things like custom button mappings, but Retrobit took the liberty of reassigning buttons appropriately. So for instance, in Super Mario Bros., the leftmost button, which in this case is Y, acts as the B button, so running and jumping feels correct when compared to playing with a standard NES controller. I also decided to try out an Nes Reproduction Cart, a fan translation of the original Mother game for NES, as a sort of special case, and once again, it ran without problem. Finally, let's go for that side-by-side comparison. For this, I recorded the opening screen of Super Mario World on the SR3 Plus, an original SNES, and the SNES Classic Edition console, which outputs to 720p as well, but through emulation. Of course, the SNES Classic Edition has the clearest and most vibrant picture because it is running through emulation. But I think the SR3 Plus does an admirable job of matching the original console, and is certainly clearer than the original Super Nintendo. One thing to note is that through HDMI there is no option to output 4:3 video from the Super Retro Trio Plus, as far as I can tell. However, the SNES Classic kind of has the opposite going on. You can't change to 16:9. Really a matter of preference. You can always use the AV out port if you prefer that 4:3 video, although it might be a bit of a hassle. One thing I noticed is, at least for Super Nintendo games, the SR3 Plus has some minor color variations from both the original and mini consoles. Black screens appear to not be true black, but a dark green. I'm not sure how well it'll show up in the video, but if you're very perceptive or picky about authentic color, it may be an issue. While I was testing this, I did go ahead and try using the Retrobit controllers on the original SNES just to make sure they were fully compatible, and I can confirm that they are. They worked just fine on the authentic console. So at $80, the SR3 Plus is right in line with the MSRP of the SNES Classic Edition, and $20 more than the version without HDMI. For a comparison, the biggest competitor in my mind is the Hyperkin Retron 5. The Retron 5 has significantly more systems supported, but you'll usually be paying at least $50 more for it. The Retron 5 is also an emulation-based system, meaning it does not have full compatibility with its various libraries, but it does have some additional features that you would be missing out on with the SR3 Plus, like save states and backups. For me personally, I loved my Retron 5, but when I most recently moved, I tried to hook it up and it was fried, it just would not work. I also own a Retron 1, and I think I might have gotten the power supplies mixed up, totally my fault. But it was disappointing to me that there wasn't some sort of precaution or safety measure, like a breaker that could have tripped to save the console, something like that. All that is to say, if you're only interested in playing NES, Super Nintendo, and Genesis titles, the Super Retro Trio Plus is a significantly cheaper and potentially more stable alternative. I know I will definitely get use out of it bringing it out of town and to conventions, and for the time being it has earned a spot in my media center. So, final conclusions. If you're looking for an all-in-one solution, the SR3 Plus may be what you want. Sound is great, visuals are for the most part authentic, controllers are versatile with a minor design setback with the triggers, library compatibility as far as I can tell is 100%. The operation can be a bit unwieldy at first, but a quick glance at the manual is all it takes to get familiar with it. The price is a bit hefty for a clone console without all the additional features of a system like the Retron 5, but it has the added advantage of being a hardware clone rather than an emulation box. And if you're playing these games on an HD TV, it may be worth the extra $20 to make that upgrade from the original Super Retro Trio. All in all, I give the Super Retro Trio Plus 8 out of 10 stars. Thanks so much for watching, I hope you enjoyed this new console review. Of course, if you have any more questions about this system, please do let me know in the comments down below and I'll try my best to get back to you. I will of course have a link for where you can pick up this system for yourself in the description below, and otherwise, I'll see you next time. Bye! Hey guys, thanks again for checking out the video and for making it all the way to the end. Hope you enjoyed. As always, I've got links to all my social media in the description below, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Discord, that sort of thing. And if you'd like to help out even more, I've got a link to my Patreon on the right side of your screen. Otherwise, I hope you'll look out for the next video. Take care.